If you're on Zoom, just raise your electronic hand and the AV can let us know that you have it raised. We can't see you, so they'll have to do the honors. And we'll have this for about 15 minutes until about 10:20, at which point we can switch to community stories session. If you're in the audience, just raise your hand and Miles can bring a mic over to you. And it can be about anything.
Thank you, Ajahn. I have a maybe more general question. What do we owe to the society in terms of contribution of our skills? To give you a little background, I teach science to kids, and then it's a very busy schedule. I have decided to cut down on my work because I don't want to continue this one. I'm facing a lot of resistance from, it's a good-natured resistance, but everybody is telling me that since I have this talent, I must continue with it for I don't know how long. I cannot stop it because I owe it to the society. So what do we really owe to the society? If we have a niche skill, are we supposed to do this for I don't know how long? Does a health crisis comes up till we die? Or can I just say, I don't want to do this simply because no reason. I just need free time. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's interesting when you look around, you come into a space and you see all the things, you see all the people, our eyes just see all the solid things in the room, but it's so easy to just not see all the space, and space is harder to quantify than, in a certain way, than things are, and it's similar with the way that society judges like what you're doing. It's easier to say what you are doing. I'm teaching so many hours per week. Here's what I'm giving back in XYZ ways. But the things that you're not doing, like the problems that you're not contributing to, are also really significant in terms of what we do and how we can contribute on a global scale, a larger scale. You know, the thermodynamics of craving and passion, you know, the extent that we don't contribute to global warming through our own craving and obsessions and addictions, that's big. That's big in and of itself. It's harder to explain to family, for sure. But yeah, just when you do come to a place of quiet, it's another thing about meditation is you're really stilling the mind, allowing the mind to just stop, to just come to a place where you're not constantly being bombarded by other people's opinions and agendas and views and whatever their priorities are, and just actually what would make the most sense for me. Only you know yourself and the possible impact that you can have on the world better than anybody else does. And when you're actually able to listen to that from coming to a place of quiet, then you'll know what you can contribute. And that may be quantifiable in a way which other people can appreciate, but maybe less so. But you'll know for yourself. This is one of the qualities of Dhamma, just knowing for yourself what you are and aren't doing for the world and for the people around you and for your neighbors, and really that really intimate people closest to you. What effect are you having on them? Yeah, it's kind of a mean thing for other people to impose their judgments onto us. So what are you contributing to that or not? I'd love to hear.
I might just also say, Aruna, I mean, we've all been through this one, you know, and yeah, like Ajahn Kovilo said, the Dhamma and that kind of quiet path is less well trodden for a reason and much harder to justify in some eyes. I'm reminded of the last job my dad took. It was after serving as vice principal in a school, and it was a job where he didn't, I think, quite understand, at least as far as I understand, the role didn't have a lot of measurable outcomes in the way that he was looking to, but talking to the people who were in the workplace with him, you know, just his presence as a presence of Dhamma and care was unbelievably valuable. And just to say that those non-quantifiables, like I was really set on being a doctor for quite a long time, and then I was in Calcutta, and I met a doctor who was working in the slums there, or the really poorest districts, and it was the most beautiful external work I could have seen, but internally she was just ragged. I saw her break down and start screaming, yelling at people, just so emotionally exhausted. And I would just say that the quality of Dhamma you bring into the world and a caring heart that's put down greed, hatred, and delusion is such a profound gift. And I think as you step deeper and deeper into the path, you do begin to feel when what you've been doing is just too much. It's a waste of time. You kind of feel that. And I really think you can trust that. And I think oftentimes a metric of a decision that's made correctly is if about half of the people in your life are kind of confused or exasperated by it. So I would just say follow that deep voice, you know. It's, like all the things we've all been through this, and it takes a certain act of, a leap of faith. Steve.
Wonder if one of you could comment on what's, for me, sort of a perennial question, I guess, in terms of practice, having to do, it's sort of the distinction between Buddha and mindfulness per se. Because on the one hand, just mindfulness in the moment by moment, you know, the three characteristics kind of reveal in this exquisite way. But using Buddha, it leads toward absorption and has kind of the nature of mind almost embedded in it. And I kind of get stuck about how to navigate between those two, because it seems like there's a between those two. And I'm kind of like rocking back and forth, and I get a little bit not clear on when to do which, or when to drop one or the other, or do they intertwine in a way I don't see.
So for the kind of just, we can say, bare mindfulness and presence practice, usually that requires some degree of stability for it to be like, let's say, genuinely authentic. Because, yes. So if the concentration isn't enough, or one's not grounded enough, if one's just doing like mindfulness of rising and passing away of thoughts, emotions, feelings, it can kind of be like more you're just kind of in this wandering state. And then that's actually unproductive, or not really developing much. And that's when one's more in like a scattered state. So then I would definitely use like Buddha or one of these samatha practices to develop a bit of like groundedness if one's in a like a very agitated or restless or scattered state. So then one's mindfulness and concentration is sufficient to keep up with the arising and passing away of things. And that can be like a very potent and very powerful meditation, both of them. And it's actually really, what are you interested in at that moment? What's really generating interest? And what can you go into that meditative exercise with like sincerity and like all in spirit? Like when with physical exercises, if we do it like half-heartedly or tiredly, or we're chatting on the side, it doesn't give that like same sort of potency and benefit. Like when you really like do physical exercise and you have this like all in spirit and intent. So also it's like what's really interesting for this meditation? What can I really devote myself towards for the next period of time? Yeah, I would say that's sufficient for this.
So if anyone doesn't know, this Buddho is a mantra, probably the most popular mantra of the Thai forest tradition. It just means awake. It's based on Buddha, the one who's awake, the one who knows that which knows. And it's a really wonderful meditation object. You can use it Bud on the in-breath, Do on the out-breath. And it really can be both a samatha or a tranquility meditation where you're just focusing just on that word, or an insight practice. And I think this disco ball is actually a great simile for how I experience Buddha. It's like if this whole room were the body, then you can actually imagine Buddha, like that which is saying, that which is knowing, just in the heart, like this floating disco ball, just knowing Buddha. And if you take it as a tranquility object, just Buddha, Buddha, in the most tranquilizing and calming way possible, with absolute clarity as well. But then when you want to bring some just insight into something, yeah, just coming to the heart space, and it's almost as if like Buddha is the bell. You can say it once and then just watch the truth of impermanence, not self, dukkha, just those manifest. Just this Buddha knowing can hold the space of perceiving impermanence and not self, which are traditional insight practices, just all from the disco ball of Buddha, to see if that works.
That simile is not in the suttas, but it's pretty great.
I have a question, actually. I wasn't sure if Venerable Bodhisattva was gonna maybe kick off the community stories, but if he was not, I was hoping that we might be able to get a bit of your backstory, maybe when you were ordained, like at what age, and what your, maybe what prompted you to ordain, sort of, what was your life like before then and after you ordained, or just whatever comes to your mind as far as your Dhamma story and path. Thank you.
Well, that's a perfect transition. Actually, Bodhisattva, we had a call several years ago, and his story of how he came to Dhamma was so good that I wrote it down and talk about it often. Let's actually have Venerable Bodhisattva begin the community story session. And what we'll do is, after Venerable Bodhisattva shares, and usually it's about 5-ish to 10-ish minutes for you, it can be a bit longer. The monks will move aside, and we'll leave a cushion here, and we'll just invite anyone who feels inspired to come up and just share how you came to Dhamma and what the Dhamma has meant to you. And if you're a little bit hesitant to come up, really consider it a gift to the community to share that. It's deeply moving to hear what this path has meant to people. If you don't want to have your video uploaded, just make sure to tell the AV crew afterwards, and they'll edit you out. And additionally, just maybe 3-ish minutes, 5-ish at the top end. And finally, it does take a lot of courage to come up here. So if you see someone come up and share, really do, I encourage you to go up to them afterwards and just thank them for their bravery. But without much further ado, we'll turn it over to Venerable Bodhisattva to begin.
So as a teenager, going through high school, I had wanted to become a lawyer and a politician. That was my fantasies of grandeur. And my family was very, I would say, classic American consumerists, like materialists. No spirituality in our family. And then the summer before senior year, when I was 17, I got into partying and doing various things. And had started to connect with people who were like semi-spiritual. And that opened me up to reading philosophy, because these drugs were opening me up to different dimensions of our experience, and I was very interested to better understand what is the potential of this human life. What are the possibilities? And before this summer, I was very successful at causing myself a lot of suffering. As a teenager, due to conceit, I ended up getting into this like state of like rejecting people who really cared about me and who respected me, and chasing after the acceptance of like popular people that were actually quite cold and harsh. So 16 and 17, I was experiencing quite deep, dark depths of suffering. From this conceited, self-created sense of isolation, so then at the end of that summer, I was staring at my computer, super bored, staring at Google, like what to search. And a memory arose from a few years before in social studies that we watched this movie about Buddhism. And all I could remember from that was there was this prince who never saw aging, sickness, or death. And I was like, that was a cool story. So I typed in Buddhism into Google. And I clicked on the Wikipedia page. And I read, desire is the cause of suffering. That suffering is a noble truth. And it immediately clicked. It like struck me, the truth of this. I was like amazed. How have I never heard this before? And I was like, what is this Buddhism? So then I clicked on another web page, and I saw a picture of a monk meditating on a mountain. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. So then I went out of my room and I said, Mom, I'm becoming a monk. And she said, don't say things like that. And then I went into my senior year of high school and I was like, guys, everything's suffering. And no one could really understand that. And as it turned out, one of my friends, before I left to India, he told me no one believed me that I was going to do this. Like, they all just thought this was like a phase. And after a few months, I ended up finding the Portland Friends of the Dhamma community and joining that community. And I remember coming up to the lay teacher there, Sakula, and I was like, I want to become a monk. And she's like, oh, we can help you. I was like, wow. And she said, oh, you must have like past life karma or something. And I was like, wow, that's cool. Great. It was very nice to experience that like positivity towards that. And I ended up meeting a man named Asher, who was 28 at the time. And he ended up being, like, he was really cool, and he was keeping the 5 precepts, also his girlfriend becoming a doctor, him becoming a counselor. And their place and their way of behaving was just, I found very inspiring and impressive. And gaining more and more of an intimate friendship with him, I was able to drop my naughty friends and, Asher, his example, helped me to align to virtue. And I'm forever grateful for his care and friendship. Aligning someone to the path of virtue is incredibly wholesome and an incredible gift to give, which he didn't impose that upon me, but rather he was living it. Sincerely, authentically. And Asher had encouraged me to go to, like, do a pilgrimage before ordaining as a monk. Like, get out a bit before you go into a monastery. And he encouraged me to go to India, visit the holy sites, do Goenka retreats. So then I worked at Jamba Juice as a supervisor there for a year. And I saved up $6,000 and bought a plane ticket, my first ever plane ticket. I had never left the west coast of the United States. And I flew to New Delhi, and I didn't know how long I was going to be traveling for, so I bought like the cheapest hostel in New Delhi, like $5. And I just totally did not realize how big of a culture shock this was going to be. Like, this hostel was like in this back alley that smelled like pee. And I arrived at night and they picked me up. And India's just crazy. And then I remember like walking out of this alley in the morning, and the streets just filled with people, like massively packed. And it was so scary. But funny enough, I had a pug when my family had a pug. And when I came to this hostel, they also had a pug. So that was quite a coincidence. So then, yeah, I kept celibacy, 5 precepts, and 8 precepts after a month or so in India. Did Goenka retreats, visited holy sites. Asher actually was in India at the same time for a month. So we ended up traveling together, which was a really beautiful time. And after 7 months in India, I went to Thailand, visited 2 Thai forest masters, and then went straight to ordain at Wat Pah Nanachat. And at that time I was 19. So I've been living in the monastery for 9 years. I left for India 10 years ago. 8 vasas as a monk. Yeah, and I feel, deeply feel fortunate for the friends and brothers that I've come across in this holy life. I feel fortunate and blessed to have found a teacher, a guide that really resonated and inspired my heart 100%. Yeah, I feel that's sufficient for a small story.
Thank you, Venerable. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. So, thank you, Buddhisaro. Mom, I'm going to be a monk. So we have a cushion here. And actually, do we have a zabuton? Wait, which one's the zafu and which one's the zabuton? The zafu, yes. That is, can we have an extra one for people? Thank you. So we'd just like to open this space up for anyone who wants to come up and share how they came to Dhamma and what it's meant to them. If you've shared before in a community stories, maybe hold off a bit and we'll open up space for those who would like. And just something like 3 to 5 minutes would be wonderful. Sid, can your job be, if they're holding the mic like this, which always happens, you go like this to make them remember, like that. So please. And if you're on Zoom, you also can share. You just have to raise your electronic hand. please come on up.
Hi everyone, I'm Nit Noi or Nelly, so I didn't know that I've been here. So I want to share about how I feel about being Buddhism. So to me, this group is a safe place to be, and it's always bring me remindings of like there's a lot of goodness in the world, and everybody here is very welcome and very kind. So I'm so grateful that I'm part of this, and I know so many of everybody. And thank you, Prajans and volunteer team to make this happen every week or all year long. I'm so grateful for it. And every time that I feel down and come back here, it's kind of like help me moving forward again. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I was downtown and I saw this woman walking across the far side of the road. We were on Alms and it was Nit Noi. And ever since that time 3 years ago, she's just been a thread through the community here. And Monique too.
Hello, friends. I look around and see so many friends, so I decided to share today. I usually wouldn't do this. How I came to the Dhamma. As a child, I was very interested in spirituality, and I was part of a mainline Christian family, and eventually became a church organist, so I was very involved in that. But in high school, I sort of left. You know, you start thinking about things differently when you're a teenager, and so I kind of drifted away. But at one point, when our family was young, we were living in mid-Wisconsin and across the street from a cemetery. And I taught my kids how to ride their bikes in the cemetery. So I was over there a lot, and death became... I just became terrified, and I thought, I've got to find an answer to this. This just can't be. I imagine myself under the ground, waking up. You know, I just was terrified. So I went back to my childhood spiritual practices for a while, and then we moved to Arizona, and my husband was given a book called Original Goodness by Sri Eknatheshwaran, and he welcomed people of all spiritual traditions, and yet he had a meditation practice that was very deep and helpful. And so for about 5 years, we were practicing with Sri Ishran, and his center is still going in California. It's a wonderful place. Because we read and memorized passages from all the spiritual traditions, it seemed like Buddhism made the most sense. And you didn't have to believe anything. It was, you know, something from your own experience. And then we moved to Texas, where there were an insight meditation group led by Rodney Smith. And there was also a retreat center close by, and teachers from Spirit Rock and IMS would come by. And so I started doing retreats and really went all in on the insight meditation practice. And at the time, our oldest son, well, actually, yeah, when we first started practicing with Ishwaran, our oldest son was 16, and he was interested, and he said, I'm going to meditate every day for 10 years. I wonder what will happen. And so we were meditating, the three of us. The other two kids were not interested. And when our son went to graduate school in Berkeley, he had access to a lot of Buddhism in Berkeley. It seems like it's on every street corner. And he went to a retreat with Ajahn Amaro at Spirit Rock. They had monastic retreats. And he came back from that and said, you know, Ajahn Amaro was the happiest person he'd ever met. And that inspired him to want to become a monk. And he was only halfway through his PhD at that point. So Ajahn Pasano and Reverend Heng Shure told him that you need to finish your commitments in the world before you become a monk. And so he did. He graduated with his PhD, and the next month he went to Abhayagiri. And so because he was at Abhayagiri, we visited Abhayagiri and eventually also incorporated the Thai forest tradition in our whole practice. And what the Dhamma means to me, it's the refuge that they talk about in Buddha Dhamma Sangha. That panic I had about death is gone. And yeah, it just infuses my whole life. And I aspire to full awakening, who knows? But in the present moment, that's where I try to be. And yeah, the reality of the present moment. And my favorite quote from Ajahn Sumedho, my refuge is awareness. The past is but a memory. The future is unknown. Now is the knowing. So.
Jean's son is Ajahn Kachana. He's wonderful.
We got anybody else who wants to come up?
Hey y'all, my name's Sam. I think I came to the Dhamma, like a lot of people come to the Dhamma, is pain. So I remember, I think it was the middle of college, and I was doing my first internship in Connecticut. I was very isolated. I didn't have a lot of friends up there. It was all very new. I was working a full-time job in a cubicle. I was going through a breakup with a long-term relationship. And I remember one of my coworkers I made buddies with, I was talking to him, and he shared with me just like some links of like some mindfulness things, and he, you know, it was just like we got along and we were buddies, and he like sent me some of this and I read it. And he was like, yeah, you know, every day, like I either like meditate in the morning or get really high. And I was like, those are two very different responses. So it's interesting, you know, so it's interesting to get exposed to both of those, be like, okay, so one of these I feel like does me a bit more good in the long term than the other. So it's very helpful. And yeah, I remember just that, like, you know, that challenge and kind of crucible in my life being very difficult morphed into something that was, you know, a lot of, you know, isolation kind of turned into, you know, solitude and time with myself and figuring myself out a lot. And meditation was a really good process in that. And I remember it was so, like, I had such a clear moment of, I think, you know, it was like towards the end of this relationship that wasn't going well. And I was like, I'm going to go for a walk. Like, I'm going to go on a hike, which, like, great response. I still do that. But I remember I was just like, you know, I was just thinking, okay, the more I think about this, the more I'll solve the problem. And I was just like spiraling and just like absolutely in my head about this. And I came back and I was like, I was miserable. I was like, why was I miserable? And I was like, okay, like thoughts are not always positive things. And I think meditation's really helped me find that. And then I remember I came back to college and like found a meditation, you know, there's a really good meditation community in my college, and like made a lot of really good friends there, and like got really invested in that. And then, you know, it's the end of the semester, it was summer. I was like, oh, there's this, you know, Goenka retreat that's happening. It's 10 days. It's like, cool, I'm going to go do that. And I remember having such expectations beforehand. I was like meditating for like 5-10 minutes. Like, it's so nice, so relaxing, so good. Half an hour, amazing. Imagine extrapolating that into 10 days, how amazing it'll feel at every moment. So turns out, not the most straight exponential linear progress. So I remember that being, yeah, also such a moment of like, okay, so it turns out this path is not as like straight upward as I thought it was. And it's a long winding thing, and that's, you know, that's part of it, and just having to accept that as the reality. And I think since then, you know, it's been touch and go. I think I've kept a mostly daily practice, at least for a little bit. But you know, I was like traveling abroad and in college, and had a lot of time and space, I think, to really devote to mindfulness and to, you know, the Dhamma, and kind of exposing that. And then moving up here for the past few years and like living a full-time like adult world where there's a bunch of exciting things and friends, and like I feel like a very balanced, like rewarding life, which is great, but it's also hard to the trade-offs between, you know, sitting by yourself for a long time when there's a bunch of exciting, flashy, you know, like city things to do is a harder challenge. So I think I really appreciate this space and other, you know, insight spaces here in Seattle. But I think, yeah, one of those things is figuring out like how much time do I put towards this, and how do I convince myself that this is the worthy thing when there's so many other things like in reach to do. But, you know, it's a balance, and we're figuring it out. So really appreciate it.
Most know sadhu is a way of rejoicing in the goodness shared. We have some more time.
The best thing for you to know about me is that I have creaky knees, and that'll keep this talk short. I'm really glad to be here, and I feel like I'm in the middle. I wandered in a spiritual desert for 6 full decades before I found my way to Buddhism. And I'm really grateful for that, in more ways than I can say. And shortly after I encountered Buddhism, there was a book that came out, a translation called First Free Women. And in there was, it's a sort of a modern and loose translation. But there's a poem that I will try my best to repeat for you. It speaks to my heart and from my heart. It's written by Vijaya, if I'm saying her name correctly, and it goes something like this. When everyone was meditating, I would be outside, circling the hall. Finally, I went to confess. I'm hopeless, I said. The elder nun smiled and said, just keep going. Nothing stays in orbit forever. If this circling is all you have, then make this circling your path. I did as she said and went on circling. If you find yourself partly in and partly out, partly drawn toward and drawn away from this path, you are in good company. just keep going. Sometimes the most direct path is not a straight line. And I think that would describe me, and I share it with you because it may touch you. And it feels to me like Vijayaha, I want to say thank you, I love you, Sangha sister. From 2,500 years ago, she spoke to me. And I give it to you because we are all part of this same process. 2,500 years ago, there was a Sangha just like this. And they were struggling and stumbling. And because they succeeded, we are here and gathered. And I don't know about you, but I'm here for those who are 2,500 years out from this place. So I'm grateful for my presence here in this Sangha, and I'm grateful for you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Jean, thank you so much. That the first Free Women, it's a translation of the Therigatha, which is these verses of enlightened nuns from the Pali Canon. Probably the first collection of women's poetry in all of world history. So I think, do we have time for one more maybe? Okay. So if we do have time for one more, if anybody is feeling brave or silly.
It's been a while.
Hello, I'm Miles, for those that don't know me, and I really wanted to get up here to primarily express a deep gratitude for the community, the kind of backstory right now that many of you know, but probably not, well, definitely not all of you know, is that recently I was living in, by choice, my truck that I had spent several years building out and converting. It was a big box truck, like an old U-Haul. And yeah, that got stolen while I was in the gym, and kind of had everything in it. Besides what I had on me in the gym, I think I have a tiny box up north, like near Bellingham, but I don't even remember what's in that box. So I kind of don't even count that among my possessions right now. So yeah, I pretty much had like sweatshirt, sweatpants, gym shorts, gym t-shirt, and one of those cool like electronic lighters that, you know, I don't know if you guys have seen those, but I know Katie and Rahul have one. And they know how cool they are. But yeah, that's the majority of what I had on me. And so besides that, like you know, everything else was pretty much gone. Like literally my entire wardrobe, except they left one pair of socks. So I had that. And a couple pens. They left a pair of scissors and a level. So yeah, but besides that, you know, all my tools were gone. For those of you that know, well, you guys can probably tell from converting a truck, I had a lot of tools for converting it. And so I lost all of those and became totally impotent because I didn't have tools to work on stuff. And so, yeah, it was interesting. I was in the gym, and it was that night that maybe some of you remember when there was a gigantic storm, tons of trees fell over, and at least in Federal Way, like everybody lost power for several days, or at least a day. Many other people for several days. And so that night I was in the gym, and then the power goes out, and so they kick everyone out of the gym. And I go out into the parking lot, and the parking lot is dark because the power went out. And I'm like, I don't see my truck anywhere. But maybe it's because the lights are off. But no, it was definitely gone. And there's kind of a part of me that's like, okay, time to panic. But there's also another part that's like, well, panicking definitely doesn't help. Let's just like stay chill. Maybe adrenaline does help me because time is of the essence in that kind of situation. So it's like act fast, but stay calm. So I did that, and it was indeed stolen, and I've just been dealing with all of that since then. So that's been a lot, but I think I know it would be a lot more if it wasn't for the kindness of this community, because there have been a number of people that have supported me financially or giving me blankets, because all my bedding was gone, and now I have new bedding, thanks to many of you, and clothing and tools and so many other things. It's just been unbelievably helpful, and it definitely would be a much, much, much harder situation without the support of you guys. And so I wasn't like emotionally devastated. I think it was a very utilitarian space. It was not the most homey of spaces. For those of you that have seen it, you're like, yeah, it's pretty utilitarian. And it was comfy enough, but it didn't feel like an emotional hit, but it was just like such a big hit, like financially, and losing all the things that I physically owned for the most part. That's been, maybe the most painful part, but it is interesting how, it wasn't a big emotional hit. It's just like, okay, this is stressful. That's about it. But I think I'm mostly through it, and I just wanted to express, I have a debt of gratitude to this entire community, not just for this, but just for being, I think, the best Buddhist community that I have come across so far. You guys are awesome. There's such a great balance of like that light-hearted love and humility and graciousness, with also really strong discernment and wisdom. And it's such a really grounding space for me to come back to every week. And for those of you that know me, you probably are like, and you need that grounding. So I really appreciate you guys providing that for me. And I think I will leave it at that. So thank you very much.
Sadhu, sadhu. Miles was at our first ever gathering 3.5 years ago at Magnuson Park with about 12 others, and has just been a thread since. So thank you, Miles. Just really appreciating the beauty of the community and those sharings. I always find we're never sure what's going to happen up on this cushion when we open it up, and every time it's just deeply heartening. Before we wrap up, perhaps, Buddhisara, would you just have a last word for the community and sort of a nice bow to put on things? No pressure. Deeply wise, please.
My teacher often says that merit is like food. And I believe, or I feel, this can be said over and over again in our modern, fast-paced lives. To take a moment to really chew, taste. Like we have the, nowadays fast food, like we're doing other things, eating quickly, kind of pushed and rushed. And we can do that with our Dhamma practice, with our spiritual path. And similar to when one eats food too quickly, one robs oneself of the opportunity to fully absorb and extract the nutriments from that food. So I invite us all to just take a moment and give space to really appreciate the wholesomeness of this gathering, to appreciate and intimate with your aspiration in your heart. This wish inside, seeking for greater purification, greater liberation. For freedom from suffering. So yeah, just taking those spaces and moments to appreciate, absorb the wholesomeness of your own intention, everyone's intentions here, to walk the path and realize the path. I felt this gathering was very wholesome, and it's been my honor to sit here today. Sincerely grateful for this occasion. Just because it's it's just it's so easy, if you come here every week, it just all becomes normal, yeah? So ignorance, we're always it's always this downward incline towards indifference, towards numbness, towards just no big deal. So that's why it's really important to regularly come back, appreciate, cultivate, develop appreciation for one's aspiration, for one's actions. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Venerable, and thanks to all of you as well. So at this time,